Australians be prepared for having their faces scanned to use social media?
Good evening, everyone, and welcome to tonight's podcast. Tonight I have a very special guest. For some reason I can't appear to see myself. Let me just readjust the settings. Here we go. So I've got Hillel Fuld tonight, all the way from the Holy Land, Eretz HaKodesh. Let me just... Something's changed here. I don't know what it is, but that's okay. Here we go. Magic. There you go. So you've been declared a persona non grata in Australia. Indeed. You've been deemed a hate preacher, a controversial hate preacher. But we'll get to that in a moment. But I want to discuss right now the elephant in the room. When I organized this interview with you, we were in a different world. The situation has really changed, and right now we find ourselves in a situation where Israel is in a direct conflict with Iran. Give us an update on the situation on the ground there in Israel. What's the mood like?
I don't know if I'd call it a conflict, because conflict implies two sides. This is more like a beating down of the world's most evil regime. Regime that is threatening the stability not only of the Middle East, but of the entire world. They have obviously ballistic missiles that reach deep into Europe. They've made their intentions pretty clear, being Israel's the small Satan and America's the large Satan. They're not shy about their ambitions. And they're not that different than the rest of the radical Islamic world. Everyone likes to give them acronyms. You can call them Hamas, you can call them ISIS, you can call them Hezbollah, you can call them Boko Haram. They're all the same garbage. And the Iranian regime is no different. So, they've been threatening the stability of the world for decades. And they were pretty close to developing a bomb as of a week ago. That is no longer the case, thanks to, like I said, a beating down from Israel.
Now, a few minutes before we caught up, you posted the following on X, and this just gives some perspective as to how big these intercontinental missiles are that Iran is launching. I'll just play this. So how big are those things? Is that it? So that's an intercontinental ballistic missile. Am I right?
Correct. They fired hundreds of those into Israel. And not to get all superstitious, or I would say theological and supernatural, let's say, we're seeing unbelievable miracles. They fired hundreds of those things into Israel. Israel's a country smaller than New Jersey, as many of you know, and we should have thousands of casualties, thousands. Just like we should have had tens of thousands of casualties on October 7th. And the fact that we detonated some of these fell in empty spaces. It's wild stuff, and I don't think it's an exaggeration to say that this operation that Israel has conducted against Iran in the last 5 days is probably going to go down in history as one of the most impressive and successful military operations in history.
Just how big is that? The size of a bus?
Looks that way.
How big are these missiles?
That would be the size of a big bus. It's humongous. It's absolutely gigantic, and we should, like I said, we should have thousands of casualties. I mean, each one of these things, when one did land, we saw the damage that it did and just destroyed an entire neighborhood. So, Israel should be wiped off the map, basically, and the fact that we're not is pretty miraculous.
It destroyed Bat Yam, am I correct?
Not the whole Bat Yam, but
Bat Yam destroyed?
Well, Bat Yam's basically like a city. But it destroyed neighborhoods. Yeah, I mean, I have friends whose house was obliterated. I mean, I have a friend who lost everything, literally everything. So these things are massive, and they're carrying tons and tons of explosives. And it's a ballistic missile. I mean, we're not messing. These aren't rockets. These aren't small rockets. Man-made rockets from Gaza. These are ballistic missiles, and Israel's using all three of its aerial defense systems. We have the Iron Dome, David Sling, and of course the Arrow system, which detonates rockets outside of Earth's atmosphere. And they're working in unison to perfection, something they were not built to do, by the way. And it's pretty wild stuff. And we're seeing that on the ground. We have Mossad deep in Iran, obviously setting up drone bases and many other incredible things and things that are unprecedented. And we're taking out, their ballistic missile launchers. 50% of them are gone. We're taking out their nuclear facilities. This is unprecedented stuff. And again, it's going to go down in history as one of the most incredible, successful military operations ever.
Are you anticipating more missile attacks?
Yeah, because one of the many insane characteristics of the radical Islamist ideology, or I should say culture, is they don't understand the concept of surrender. I mean, you would think that they'd be smart enough to say, all right, enough is enough. I mean, they are going back channels and begging America to make Israel stop, but they've made it very clear, as of at least a half an hour ago, they just said it, that they're not going to surrender. And Tehran is burning. So, they're going to continue, and they're going to work as hard as they can to hurt as many innocent civilians as possible. It's important to mention, by the way, that if you look at all these Iranian attacks in Israel, there was not one soldier killed, not one. Every single person killed in Israel was a civilian, including a little girl with leukemia and an old grandmother in her 90s. And so they're, intentionally targeting civilians, while Israel's intentionally targeting their nuclear facilities and their ballistic missiles. And that's, pretty much sums up the entire Middle East conflict, because you have the same thing with Hamas, same thing with Hezbollah. Israel's targeting terrorists when they're targeting civilians. This is their method, this is their strategy, and this is what they've done, and this is what they've always done, including, of course, the propaganda war, where they just upload AI-generated images and just make up lies about Israel, about massacres, and, there was a massacre in the humanitarian zone. It's all BS. They just make it up as they go along.
And just out of interest, is this the Iron Dome in action? I think we're seeing what appears to be missiles going up and intercepting rockets. So I'm assuming this is the Iron Dome that we're witnessing in Tel Aviv.
Well, it's hard to differentiate, because all three of them do the same thing. They're just at different heights. Iron Dome it reaches rockets at the lowest height. After that is David Sling, and after that is the Arrow systems. It's hard to see which one of these you're showing right now, but all three of them, like I said, all three of these systems are miraculous. I mean, that's not even an exaggeration. I mean, I spoke to Dr. Danny Gold, who invented the Iron Dome. No one thought it was possible to do what he did. And like I said, all three of them, independent of the others, is a miracle. And the fact that they're working together this way is just incredible.
Purportedly, this image comes from the Israeli Ministry of Defense, that area there they have iron domes or some kind of line of defense around the Ministry of Defense. But I just want to play the following clip, just an excerpt from Fox News. I'll just bring it up.
Unconditionally. Last night, he warned everybody to flee the capital, and now Tehran's a ghost town. Surgical strikes target Iranian nuclear scientists and military commanders have taken their toll. Windows have turned to powder, and the lobby of buildings are gone. Overnight, Israel continued to pummel missile and drone infrastructure in the western
So President Trump has requested that the Iranian people, the residents of Tehran, evacuate the city. What do you think might go down? Any idea? Is there any speculation as to what might happen over the next couple of days?
I mean, things change from minute to minute, so it's hard to know. But the hope is that there'll be an uprising against this regime, which the majority of the Iranian people do not support. And I hope this will give them kind of a safe avenue to stand up to this regime. But there's a lot going on behind the scenes that we don't know about, and there's a ton of things that happened, in preparation for this entire operation. There was an entire deception carried out both by Trump and by Netanyahu and by the press that was meant to lead the supreme leader to believe that Israel will not attack. I'm talking like serious stuff, like really unbelievable stuff, political stuff, diplomatic stuff, really crazy stuff. And so, again, we don't know what's going to happen. I mean, there's crazy rumors circulating. I don't even want to speculate, but, Israel's not going to stop. Israel has clear objectives, and it will not stop until Iran's nuclear program is, obliterated, and its ballistic missile infrastructure is also obliterated. So, those are the clear objectives of the war, and Israel is not stopping no matter what.
There's a lot of chatter in the West amongst certain circles. And by the way, I just want to preface, you're right about a lot of people don't know this. The Iranian population is the majority of them are against the regime, and they're very modern, I guess, in their outlook. They're very westernized and I guess more European in their outlook than Middle Eastern in terms of how they view life. Right. But in contrast, there's certain circles in the West, and I think that might come down to fatigue from the war in Iraq and Afghanistan, especially in the US and some other countries, Australia, where they claim that this is a war, that they don't want to get involved in any wars, and they don't want to die for Israel, to put it bluntly. I want to play an excerpt, if that's okay with you, from someone, he calls himself a comedian, Dave Smith, and I want to get your reaction to what he said.
That the Pentagon told George W. Bush that we cannot go to war with Iran because we do not have escalation dominance against them, essentially meaning that they can hit all of our bases and embassies in the region, and we are very vulnerable to them. And we've already seen demonstrated since the Israeli attack that the Iranian, the missiles that they sent last year toward Israel, as many of us guessed, that wasn't really their best. They were intentionally making an attack that wouldn't really hurt anybody, that wouldn't really lead to a war, which Iran has done over and over again. But now we've pushed them to the point where they probably don't feel that they have the option not to respond. And Donald Trump telling them to come back to the negotiating table now is a joke. Yeah. I mean, what a impotent leader to be sitting there talking about coming back to the negotiating table. It's like sitting after Pearl Harbor and telling FDR, now's the time to go negotiate with the Japanese. Right. Negotiations are over now. The time for negotiations was before this. And so, yeah, Donald Trump looks, and man, I supported him this last year. I apologize for doing so. It was a bad calculation. At the time, it seemed like the right one. But he should be impeached and removed for this one. Wow. And not on some not on some ridiculous Nancy Pelosi. Of course, the Congress will never do it because they're all a bunch of corrupt hacks.
This is the one thing they support. This is
Donald Trump should be impeached and removed for this. All of his supporters should turn on him. It's the absolute betrayal of everything that he ran and campaigned on and everything that he stood for. And I will say, despite the fact that, Donald Trump supporters have been labeled like a cult following, and that certainly is true for a percentage of his supporters, he is going to lose his coalition over this. I don't just speak for myself when I say there are a lot of us who simply will not go along with this. So it's just a devastating mistake. By the way, on top of that, he's also going to lose the deportation fight because of this.
So Hillel, how would you respond to that? There's a lot to unpack there, I know.
What a small man. He's a small little man, an irrelevant man. I never heard of him before. Have you? I don't know. I mean, he's a comedian. The only thing that I hear that comes out of his mouth that's funny are his opinions on this matter. Like, first of all, who asked you? Like, what made you an authority, number one? Number two, no one's saying that America should go to war for Israel. That's not even part of the discussion. Israel's not asked America to do anything. But if America goes to war against Iran, it's for America. Iran continuously threatens America and has done so for decades. So the fact that he's, scared of the retaliation, I mean, Iran is as weak as can be. Everyone knows it except for Dave Smith. Again, he's a small man. I don't understand why he's even given a stage. He's completely irrelevant. His opinions are ridiculous. They're based on nothing. And, the famous interview that he did on Piers Morgan with Douglas Murray, when Douglas Murray said to him, when was the last time you were in Israel? He said, oh, I've never been there. This guy's going from TV station to TV station talking about a conflict he knows nothing about. He's never stepped foot in Israel. He doesn't know what the heck he's talking about. So, I, honestly, it's not even worth my time or your time watching that guy. It's sickening. He doesn't know what the heck he's talking about. And he's a small, weak man trying to, do anything he can for relevancy.
And a lot of these, people, Dave Smith, Tucker Carlson, and a few others are comparing the situation to Iraq, but it's nothing like Iraq. There's really not much of a comparison, and the US soldiers aren't going in. There's not going to be boots on the ground there. But I just want to play just something quick here. Trump has actually been very consistent.
Iran cannot have a nuclear. Iran can't have a.
He's been saying this since 2016 consistently.
Iran can't have a nuclear weapon. Iran will never have a nuclear weapon. Iran cannot have a nuclear weapon. Iran, very simply, from having a nuclear weapon. They can't have a nuclear weapon. What we're saying is you can't have a nuclear weapon.
So he's been saying the same thing over and over and consistently. He never changed his position, but these pundits like Dave Smith are saying that he suddenly did an about face and he betrayed his base.
Yeah, Piers Morgan says, why should Israel have a nuclear weapon, not Iran? Like, do these people have a moral compass? Are they really comparing Iran that threatens the world constantly and is going to use a nuclear weapon offensively to murder millions of people, compared to Israel that has a nuclear weapon for its defense, a democratic country that is surrounded by hostile neighbors who want its destruction and have always wanted its destruction? Israel has no intention of using a nuclear weapon. It's there for its defense, its protection, as is the IDF, Israel Defense Forces. So again, the fact that people are drawing an equal sign between Iran, this evil genocidal regime, and Israel, the only democratic country in the entire Middle East, is just an indication yet again of the moral bankruptcy of these quote-unquote pundits who just know nothing, and they realize that their clicks and their traffic is going down. They'll do anything to get more, and they know that Jew hatred gets clicks, and that's it. That's what it's all about.
And just and I noticed Candace Owens has really lost the plot, as if she couldn't sink any lower with her latest tweet. But
she's not mentally stable. I'm sorry to say it that way, but I mean, you don't have to look too far back. Just go look at her, her opinions 3 years ago. I mean, she didn't, it's one thing, you could change opinions. That's fine. Like literally 180. So she's being paid off by someone. I have no doubt in my head whatsoever, but she's taken off the mask. She's not like, being subtle about her anti-Semitism. She's going full-blown anti-Semitic tropes that we saw in Nazi Germany, full-blown anti-Semitism with no shame whatsoever. She's lost her mind.
And there's a gentleman on Twitter, on X, his name's Misfit Patriot, and he found that Ian Carroll is a very prominent pundit, critic against Israel, and I'm being very diplomatic and polite here, to say the least, that his following and his likes and his clicks are not all organic. It's all artificial, mostly 80%, 90% bots. So do you think that there's a coordinated campaign here that's run by foreign governments?
I don't think so. We know so. We've documented proof of that. Qatar is paying, in the American universities, they're paying students, they're paying influencers, they're paying journalists. We know this. We have literal proof and evidence, hard evidence, indisputable evidence. So there's no question whatsoever that some of these guys are being paid. And, at the end of the day, when the entire narrative is based on one big lie, the entire pro-Palestinian narrative from its get-go, from its inception, is one big historical fabrication. And so when you start the lies pile up and it just continues. It's all based on lies. I mean, go back to 1964 when Yasser Arafat founded the Palestinian Liberation Organization. What was he liberating? There was no occupation back then. So what was he liberating? Besides the fact that Yasser Arafat, the father of the Palestinian people, was born in Cairo. He's an Egyptian. Like, the whole thing's a lie. There was never an Arab-Palestinian state. There was never an Arab-Palestinian nation. It never existed. The whole thing's just one big lie. They had a state. They want a state. They had a state in 1947 in the partition plan. They didn't want a state. They had a state in 2005 when Israel left Gaza and gave it to them. They don't want a state. They say it in their own charter. Read the charter. The charter says they want dead Jews. And yet the world's like, no, they want self-determination and blah, blah, blah. The whole thing's a lie. The entire thing is a lie from the get-go. And so the lies keep piling up. And so these guys use their platform to spread vicious anti-Semitic lies about Israel, pretending that it's, I don't have anything against Jews, only against 95% of Jews who are Zionists. The whole thing's preposterous. There's no other way to describe it. It's absolutely absurd.
Just to clarify, you mentioned that there never existed a Palestinian state, an Arab Palestinian state. They identified themselves as part of Greater Syria. So, and that prior to 1964 and 1967, I think it was more after 1967 that they started to bring out this lie that they identified as Palestinians.
That's right. We have, actual birth certificates of real Palestinians, and one of them is Golda Meir, because Palestine was Israel. All right. We have archaeological evidence. We have, coins. We have anything you want. And if anybody thinks that there was an Arab Palestinian state in this land, kindly tell me who the prime minister was or when it was established, because it never existed. It never existed. The whole thing, they're lies. I mean, they're AI images. If we're committing genocide in Gaza, why do they keep getting caught in lies? Why do they have to make up pictures? Like, I'm not going to get into the details, but whatever. There have been instances, there have been stories like the massacre in the humanitarian zone, that Israel massacred tens of people. If that happened, why do they keep getting caught with AI generated images and just made up lies? If it's so bad like they say it is, and there's, starvation in Gaza, then why do they keep lying? And if there's starvation in Gaza, how are they so-called feeding the hostages well? If there's no food in Gaza, how are you feeding the hostages? They lie so much, they contradict themselves, right? The same people saying, globalize the intifada, which is literally calling for a violent uprising, are the same people saying ceasefire now. Same people saying two-state solution means an Arab country next to a Jewish country, are the same people saying from the river to the sea, which means no Israel. They've gotten to a point that they lie so much they can't even keep track of their own lies. They just lie and contradict themselves constantly. And you know what? It's become a popular thing because they did something brilliant. They aligned their false and fake agenda with like a cause, like, freedom of speech. How could you kick me out of Harvard? I'm just using my freedom of speech. But guess what? Freedom of speech does not mean inciting against Jews and preventing Jews from walking around on campus freely. That's called anti-Semitism. And so they aligned look, the Palestinian agenda is aligned with free speech. Give me a break. The whole thing is just one big fabrication.
Yes, they restricted the movement of Jewish students and intimidated them with violence and threats on campuses all across, not just the United States, but in Australia and across Europe and other Western countries.
That's right. These people, by the way, I just want to tell you, like these Candace Owens and Pierce Morgans of the world, they're going to go down in history books. They're going to go down in history books alongside the people who sided with the Nazis in World War II. I mean, Hamas, listen, let's just be clear here. People like to say, there's nobody like the Nazis. Really? Because the Nazis drank themselves to sleep because they were so ashamed of the things they were doing. Hamas live streamed it, right? Let's not forget that there were many Germans who saved Jews in World War II. Hamas and Gazans were offered millions of dollars to give any information about a single hostage, and not one got up and gave that information. So I don't like to say better or worse, but comparing Hamas to the Nazis is pretty spot on. And again, maybe they're even worse. It's not important who's worse. The fact of the matter is Hamas and radical Islam is the modern day Nazism of the world. And those who stand by them, they're going to go down in history and they're going to be shamed in history for siding with these genocidal, murderers, rapists, and pedophiles. Let's just say it as it is. That's what they do. That's what they did on October 7th. That's what they're proud of doing. They don't even hide it. And you have these people in the West who are, so-called human rights activists and moral blah, blah, blah. They're morally bankrupt, just absolute, it's just Jew haters. There's no other way to say it.
It's easy to be on the other side of the world and to moralize and claim the moral high ground from the comfort of your couch. And the interesting thing about the situation in Israel is it's brought out a lot of these people from the woodwork. Now, yep. With the current situation in Iran, between Israel and Iran, the situation in Gaza and in Yehuda and Shomron in the so-called West Bank has taken a back seat. It's not front of mind now in the news media so much. But what's the situation there right now over the last few days? Have you got any updates with the hostages, with the soldiers there?
Sure. So Netanyahu has made it pretty clear that a lot is going on behind the scenes in terms of getting the hostages out. But, the IDF is still deep in Gaza, still doing its thing. Hamas, basically are done. I mean, they're underground hiding like rats. There's no one overground. And any unfortunate, incident where an IDF soldier is killed is not from battle with Hamas. It's with booby-trapped, structures in Gaza that were booby-trapped for months. They're not fighting. They're underground like the cowards that they are. And same thing, by the way, for the supreme leader of Iran. He's underground hiding. So this is their tactic. This is what they do. They talk a big game, right? The other 2 days ago, I think, or yesterday, Iran made an announcement. Something's gonna happen that the world will remember for centuries. What happened? Nothing. Like, they're just big talkers. They have a strong and loud bark, and they don't do any. Again, just they talk a big game. And that's all they know how to do.
Now over to Australia, down under. So you've been recently declared a persona non grata in Australia. So you've been portrayed as a hate preacher by our benevolent government. What was the most controversial thing you said? Have I missed something? Can you give me a bit of a rundown?
It's so ridiculous. I mean, so just a little backstory. I mean, 3 days before that happened, someone sent me a tweet of some random Twitter account that announced that, Zionist, Islamophobe Hillel Fuld coming to Australia. Let's get him blocked. And here's a report of all of his, Islamophobic tweets. And it was a small account. So I didn't make much of it. And I just moved on. And people told me not to even pay attention to it. And then Friday morning, I'm supposed to leave on Tuesday. So Friday morning, 3-4 days before, I got an email from the Australian government saying that they have revoked my visa, and they included a document with my tweets saying that these tweets are inflammatory and Islamophobic. And of course, I looked at the tweets. Absolutely ridiculous. I'll just give you one example was that I denied that there was a massacre in the humanitarian zone, which we now know there wasn't, meaning it was confirmed. Every single publication and journalist that reported that had to, retract that statement because it did not happen. And when I talked about, the radical Islam, right? So what did they do? They took the word radical out, right? And I said radical Islam is a global cancer, and they said, Hillel said, Islam's a global cancer. It's just straight up lies. I'm a danger to the public. I'm not a danger to anyone. I've never shared anything even remotely Islamophobic. It's just an excuse to silence a pro-Israel voice.
Now, Tony Burke actually compared you. We spoke about Candace before, good old Candace. So he compared you to Candace Owens. Now, for the record, I'm all for Candace Owens as much as I hate her views coming to Australia because I support free speech. As wacky as I think her views are, I was against that government from barring her. But what's your reaction to Tony Burke comparing you to Candace Owens?
Did he actually make that comparison, like actually out in the open? I didn't see that.
He was quoted in the Australian, I believe, in one of the publications. There was a line.
Send that to me afterwards. It's just ridiculous. It's ridiculous because I speak facts, right? I speak facts, and people don't like it. People don't like the truth. There's if anybody denies that there's a problem with radical Islam taking over the world, then they're in denial. They're sticking their head in the sand. It's a problem. I mean, over 90% of a global terrorism is carried out by Muslims. And to be clear, every single terrorist attack carried out by a radical Islamist has one thing in common, and that is when they, perform this terrorist attack, they yell Allah Akbar, meaning they're not just a bunch of, criminals and lone wolves and rotten apples. They're doing it in the name of Islam. Let's just say it what it is, right? So, one of the things that I heard from a friend, Brigitte Gabriel, said something that's spot on. At the end of the day, we have, if I'm being conservative, 10 to 15% of Muslims globally are radicalized. So we're talking anywhere between 180 and 300 million people dedicated to the destruction of the West. If you're telling me that fearing a religion that gives birth to 300 million people dedicated to my death and your death, and you're telling me that the fear of that religion is irrational, then you're ridiculous. That is the most rational fear in the world. So there's nothing Islamophobic about saying that radical Islam is a major global problem. It's a fact. And not only will the West not recognize that fact, and therefore they cannot solve it, but anybody who does recognize that fact, they label them an Islamophobe. So we're in big trouble here. If the Western world doesn't wake up and deal with this problem, it's not going to end well.
And tell me, a lot of people look, there's going to be a lot of people, at least half of the people that are going to be watching this that aren't that familiar with why you came here. So did you come here to speak at a hate rally? What was the purpose of your visit to Australia?
I came there to speak at a fundraising event for Magen David Adom, which is the quote-unquote Red Cross of Israel. It's a life-saving emergency organization, by the way, that promotes coexistence, that has tons of Arabs and Israelis working side by side and saves Arabs and saves Israelis. There's nothing more beautiful, and it's the opposite, literally the opposite of discrimination and of Islamophobia. And so I was coming there to speak about Israeli tech, about my brother who was murdered by, a Palestinian terrorist. And I was told, by the way, from indirectly from an official in Australia that if they can reverse the decision, I need to commit, I need to, promise that I'm not going to speak about the fact that my brother was murdered by an Arab terrorist, which is just different level insane. Yeah, it's outrageous. So, it's the whole thing's ridiculous. It's just an excuse to, and by the way, to be clear, as soon as I got that email revoking my visa, I went into action. I immediately contacted Ambassador Huckabee, who's a friend, immediately contacted Israel's foreign minister, immediately contacted Israel's former ambassador to the UN. I went all the way up the diplomatic ladder. And in addition, I, of course, appealed the normal channels, and the media went nuts. So it was everywhere. So the amount of pressure on the Australian government was unprecedented. And despite that, they did not reverse the decision. So anti-Semitism runs deep.
Just to clarify, you tried to enter the country as an American citizen.
That's correct.
So I believe that sparked some sort of a diplomatic incident between the two countries. Is that correct?
Yeah. Ambassador Mike Huckabee sent a pretty serious letter to the government requesting that they let me in. Nothing, no response. And they, and even when I got the response to my appeal, and it was rejected, which is just so crazy.
Wow. And do you think, is it diplomatic tension still ongoing between the two countries over this? I know America is having a general issue with Australia curbing free speech.
Yeah. I think, I don't know that there's necessarily like a crisis between the two countries over me, but this is just it's an indication. This is a symptom of a much more serious disease and a sickness. And it's not just Australia. Australia is just, one of the many countries. We see it in Canada. We see it in the UK. We see it in South Africa. We see it in Ireland. I mean, it's everywhere. I mean, I'm getting emails and messages from people every single day, not one and not two, telling me they can't wear their Star of David necklace, or they can't identify as a Jew in any way, shape, or form. It's crazy stuff. And we're back to 1935 Germany. Literally, this isn't even an exaggeration anymore. I mean, 6 months ago, people thought I was crazy when I made that comparison. They're like, what are you talking about? It's not. It is the same. It's literally copy paste. I mean, before the Holocaust, this is what we saw. We saw academic institutions barring Jews. We saw Jews being assaulted and harassed on the streets. We saw everything we're seeing now. And the world, the Jewish world, I should even say, is just kind of sticking their head in the sand and not reading the writing on the wall, which is what, unfortunately, the European Jews did back then. It's wild to see. I never thought I'd see this in my lifetime, but here we are.
The Israeli embassy in Australia actually issued advice to a travel warning to Israelis, saying that they, and maybe even Jews in general, that they shouldn't display overt signs of their Judaism. Necklaces, symbols, yarmulkes, I guess that includes all of that would identify them as Jews. How would you react to that?
It's tragic. And it's just, like I said, a sign of a deeper disease, that it is moral bankruptcy of the entire Western world. They've lost their plot. Their compass is broken, and they just simply, listen, at the end of the day, it's a problem of when you teach an entire generation not to use critical thinking. And I'm not going to get into the topics of like gender and other things, but at the end of the day, you teach a generation not to use critical thinking, then why are you surprised when there's a war between good and evil and they can't tell the difference? When you make an equal sign between Israel and Hamas, Israel that wants to just live in peace. That's all Israel ever wanted, just live in peace. And there's the other side that just wants to make sure we don't live in peace. And that's the entire Middle East conflict in a couple of words. That's it. You now know more about the Middle East conflict than 99% of the people on American campuses, right? So when they make an equal sign as if we're the same, again, it's a symptom of a very, very sick, deprived, like really just morally broken society. And this is what we're seeing. And it's not getting any better. It's getting worse by the day.
I would say it's not moral equivalence. I'd say it's moral inversion, because Tony Burke, the immigration minister, he's got a cute little nickname, Tony Burka. I guess it's a very apt nickname. he invited, not invited, he allowed in a Hezbollah supporter, someone who openly supports Hezbollah, preaches against Christians and Jews and other minorities, and promotes extremism quite openly. And they let people like that into the country. So it's a moral inversion.
That's right. I mean, I'm not a psychologist, but I'm pretty sure that there's a term for when you're guilty of something and then you project it on someone else, right? This is what we see. Every single thing, it's unbelievable. You got to go down this list. Every single thing that they're accusing the Jews of doing is exactly what they're doing, right? We're committing genocide. Have you seen the footage from October 7th? We're in apartheid. Have you ever tried walking into an Arab town in Judea and Samaria? Like every single, we're starving. We're starving the Gazans. Do you see what the Gazans did to the hostages? They're starving them. So like every single thing they accuse us of is exactly what they're doing. In fact, if you want to know if they're guilty of something, go look at what they're accusing us of doing. It's literally just copy everything they're doing. They're accusing us of doing. It's absurd.
I find it interesting as well. I mean, this wouldn't be necessarily directly linked to your cancellation. I'd say it's mida keneged mida karma. That's what we'd call it in
eye for an eye.
English. That Anthony Albanese, the Prime Minister of Australia, was supposed to meet with Donald Trump at the G7 summit, and at the very last minute, Donald Trump cancelled on him. So I thought that was really interesting. That happened over the last 2 days. I don't know if you heard about that or not.
Yeah. I mean, Donald Trump left the G7 early, and there's a lot of speculation about why that is. I've heard some crazy rumors. I don't know what's true and what's not true. But listen, I think putting aside politics, Donald Trump speaks. You can hate the guy. You can think he's a narcissist. You could say whatever you want about him. But when it comes to issues of geopolitics, specifically radical Islam and Iran and the nuclear, he speaks with moral clarity. And, he sees the rest of the world just lose the plot. And he doesn't have tolerance for that. He just doesn't want to hear the lies. The lies are just constant and they're everywhere. And it's just, if you have a moral compass, you could look at the world and say, you guys are all nuts. You've lost your minds.
And as I said before, he's been very consistent since 2016. And when he was first inaugurated in 2017, he said that the greatest threat that needs to be destroyed, and I'm paraphrasing, is radical Islam. To the great discomfort of Barack Obama, who was sitting across him, listening to him speak.
Yeah, so the fact that there's a single human being on planet Earth that thinks that the Iranian regime should have a nuclear weapon, again, it's mind-blowing to me that there's a single human being on planet Earth that has a brain in their head that thinks that the Iranian regime should have access to nuclear weapons. What do you think they'll do the day after they get to the bomb? What are they going to do? Like, why do they have ballistic missiles that reach into Europe? Why are they spending billions of dollars building ballistic missile launchers that reach Europe? What are they doing this for fun? They're doing it because they have malicious intent. It's very clear what they want to do. They say it. You don't have to read minds. They say it. They want to wipe Israel off the map. And then America, they say it openly, as do Hamas in their charter, as do the Palestinian Authority with all the, Abbas is a moderate. Dude, the guy did a freaking doctorate on Holocaust denial. These guys are all the same. This Cholani guy in Syria, he puts on a tie. All of a sudden he's a diplomat. The guy's an Al-Qaeda terrorist. Like, we've lost our minds. I don't know. Do you have a brain in your head? Use your brain. Use your eyes. Look at what people just, it comes down, really, to me, it comes down to Jew hatred. At the end of the day, Jew hatred makes people lose their minds. I mean, there are people, in my previous life in the tech world who are objectively brilliant people, some of the biggest investors in the world. And somehow when it comes to Jews, they're quoting Al Jazeera. They're like, what happened to your data? What happened to due diligence? What happened to, researching the truth? Somehow when it comes to the Jews, that's it. No facts. I'm just going to spew garbage. It's crazy.
And a lot of people don't realize this, but the Iranian regime, they're not just Shia Muslims, but they're part of the sect called the 12er sect. And in that sect, they believe that they have some messianic figure called the 12th Imam. And in order to bring this messianic figure and reveal who he is, it has to be through Armageddon and a complete destruction. So it's inevitable. It's their whole religious belief is based around that. So that's why they're building these ballistic missiles. That's why they're building these nuclear warheads. There's a reason why.
That's right. Again, they say it. They say it openly. It's like, the irony of the world, take the Palestinian cause, right? The irony of the world saying, we're standing up for the Palestinians. They deserve a state. And yet when the Palestinians say we don't want a state, the world says, they don't mean it. It's like, dude, you're standing with the Palestinians. Listen to what they're saying. They're saying they want dead Jews. No, they don't mean it. Wait a second. Are they kids who should not be held accountable for their words? In which case they don't deserve a state. Or are they, deserving of a state? In which case they're adults that should be held accountable for their words. But no, the world's like, yeah, we love the Palestinians, but we're not going to listen to them. It's just absurd. I don't know. It's so preposterous. It's so backwards. It's crazy.
And obviously the Australian government their policy is to appease radical Islam, and they're taking a very hostile approach towards Israel. What's your message to Tony Burke, Penny Wong, who's the foreign minister, and the Prime Minister Anthony Albanese? If they were sitting in front of you, what message would you have for them?
I would say open a history book, because there has never been an empire that came after the Jews that still exists, right? I mean, where's the ancient Roman Empire, the Greek Empire, the ancient Egyptian Empire, the Soviet Empire, the Nazi Empire? Anytime an empire came after the Jews, they went extinct. It's not a good idea to side with losers, and whoever comes after the Jews end up losing. So that's first of all. But second of all, look, you don't have to look into history books. Go to your friends in the UK and see what the UK looks like. Go to London. Look at these places. They're burning from radical Islamists, taking over, looting stores. They're turning them into like hell on earth. Yeah, the rape. I mean, it's just crazy. And so, you wanna go there. That's where you want to head to. Okay, go right ahead. You're taking your country and just drilling it into the ground. So, if that's what you want, go do that. But if you want to open your eyes a little bit and see what's going on in the world, you'll realize you've taken the wrong side here. You're on the wrong side of history.
And Hillel, I want to give you the floor and just share with our audience any final words that you've got and some pearls of wisdom.
Right. So, as far as the Jewish people is concerned, we have, this isn't our first rodeo, right? We've been down this road before. And, we celebrate all these holidays, but back then those holidays were the near genocide of the Jewish people. We celebrate Purim. That was ancient Persia trying to annihilate the Jews. And now we celebrate. And that's true for all of our holidays. Passover, we were slaves in ancient Egypt. The same will be today. There's no question. I mean, we see it now, but there's no question who's going to win here and who's going to lose here. So, as far as Jews are concerned, keep your chin up, because we got this and we've been here before and we're going to win. As far as the rest of the world, you don't get it. You don't get it. Am Yisrael Chai is a real thing. It's a historical reality. You're on the wrong side. You're choosing the losing side here, the immoral side here, the genocidal maniacs who did what they did on October 7th and who did what they did on 9/11 and who did what they did throughout history since its inception. This is what Islam has done in the world. So, you see where it heads. You see the end result of when Islam or radical Islam takes over a society. Just open your eyes and just make a 180, because it's not too late, but you're getting there. You're almost at the point of no return. So open your eyes and think carefully about your future.
Now, I'll encourage all the viewers who are going to be watching this to follow you on Instagram, on X, Facebook. I'll post the links in the description. Is there anywhere else where people can find you? Have I listed all of the relevant?
Facebook, Instagram, X, all of them. I just want to say one more thing, and that is to your viewers who are the Jew haters, or let's call them anti-Zionists, because like they call themselves. Let me tell you something, whoever you are, wherever you are in the world, if you have a hatred of the Jewish people, or you know what, forget the Jewish people. If you hate Zionists, then take your phone and flush it down the toilet. Because if you're using an iPhone, the chip was developed in Herzliya. And if you unlock your iPhone, it's Face ID that was developed by PrimeSense, an Israeli company. And if you're using Android, that too is built here. And if you're using Windows with Intel chip, that's built in Jerusalem. All right. And if you're using Google, that just acquired an Israeli company for $32 billion and owns Waze, stop using Google. And Facebook, which has 3 offices in Tel Aviv, stop using Facebook. And the list doesn't end. Drip irrigation, you want to water your garden? You're not allowed to, because that's an Israeli technology. So if you're going to at least have some integrity and you hate the Zionist entity, take your technology and shove it down the toilet and stop using the internet, because the internet, Wix, which builds half the websites on the internet, is an Israeli company. So no matter what you do in your life, professionally or personally, there's at least 5 to 10 instances on a daily basis that you, wherever you are in the world, you are using Israeli tech. So at least be honest. You hate the Zionist entity, stop using our products. I'm
starting to feel sorry for all these pro-Palestinian demonstrators that walk around in keffiyehs and yell, boycott Starbucks, boycott Zara, boycott Coke and Pepsi. I'm really feeling sorry for them now. They've got no way to communicate or get around now.
That's right. That's right.
So Hillel, thank you so much for agreeing to come on, taking the time out of your busy schedule to come on my podcast. I really appreciate it, and I'd really love to have you back on again soon.
Anytime, my friend. Anytime.
Thank you, and God bless. Thank you for watching, everyone.